From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the Evening News Blast, which is part two of this morning's story. Advocate is reporting political violence is no longer just a safety issue. It is becoming a structural barrier to representation for the LGBTQ plus community. Candidates described altering campaign schedules, avoiding public appearances, limiting social media activity, and withholding canvassing locations out of fear that harassment could escalate into physical attacks. More than half of the respondents to a survey said safety concerns affected where or how they campaigned. Nearly 1 in 5 described the impact as significant for transgender candidates, especially those in suburban and Republican-leaning districts. The risks are often even more acute. One respondent recalled receiving threats warning them not to come near schools because they were trans. Another said local Democrats urged them not to run as their authentic selves. Candidates spoke about chronic stress counseling, PTSD, and the psychological exhaustion of reading degrading messages day after day while still trying to appear publicly composed. It is hard to be the best candidate you can when you are dealing with threats and bullying, just like we have to deal with here on YouTube. One candidate said in the report. Another described developing hypervigilance after repeated attacks. The report argues that political violence targeting LGBTQ plus candidates has become, in effect, a mental health crisis embedded inside Democratic participation itself. Evan Lowe, that is, said the Victory Institute increasingly treats candidate safety and emotional well-being as part of Democratic infrastructure rather than optional support services. We treat candidate safety and well-being as an essential component of our democratic infrastructure, again, according to Evan Lowe. That now includes specialized training programs for transgender candidates, mental health initiatives, and conversations about security planning that once would have seemed extraordinary for local or state legislative races. But many candidates still cannot afford meaningful protection. Fewer than 1 in 10 respondents said they could afford private security or a formal law enforcement presence during campaigns. Some described installing cameras and home surveillance systems instead. Others said they abandoned security discussions because campaigns lacked the money. I wanted to hire private security, but it was too expensive, one candidate told researchers. Lowe said donors increasingly need to consider candidate protection a legitimate campaign expense. Yes, absolutely, he said when asked whether supporters should consider funding security measures for LGBTQ plus candidates. He also drew a direct connection between the current political climate and the hostility candidates are experiencing. Our opposition is given the license to discriminate, license to attack, the license to be emboldened by using hate speech, by demonizing who we are, Lowe said. Where there are laws on the books that criminalize our existence, the next step naturally is the demonization of our very livelihoods and our existence. Still, despite the threats, LGBTQ plus candidates continue running in record numbers. The report found that nearly all respondents believe being LGBTQ plus ultimately strengthened their candidacies, deepening their empathy, resilience, and connection to community. Lowe pointed to more than 1,300 out LGBTQ plus elected officials now serving nationwide as evidence that the pipeline has not collapsed under pressure. Members of our community have been historically persecuted, targeted, and yet we continue to persevere, he said. That's the news blast for this hour. The PEP Radio YouTube channel has updates throughout the day. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, Roku, Alexa, fmstream.org, or wherever you find streaming radio. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on